This video is brought to you by the Deck of Many and Humblewood.net. Welcome back to the Gallant Goblin. I'm Theo. Grady's off perfecting his recipe for Kobold Pot Pie. Today we're here to look at Tyranny of Dragons. This is the very first set in the Icons of the Realms line of pre-painted miniatures for Dungeons & Dragons. This was released back in August 2014, and it supports the adventures Rise of Tiamat and Hoard of the Dragon Queen. Now, this set comes in larger boxes than you might normally be used to seeing for the Icons of the Realms line. Usually, if you have bigger boxes, it means that there's huge minis included. But to my understanding, this one only has large creatures as the maximum. They just have larger boxes because dragons have longer wingspans, and there's a lot of dragons in this set. But let's go ahead, open it up, and take a look and see what's inside. Icons of the Realms sets usually come with a few minis that can be used as NPCs or player characters, being a race and class with which you can make a full build. Gnomes start with a +2 to intelligence, which is the primary ability score used by wizards. Rock gnomes gain a further +1 to constitution, which is good for any class, and is more useful to a wizard than the bonus provided by any other gnome subrace. That constitution bump can help your concentration checks to keep those important spells active. Rock gnomes are the most common type of gnome in the Forgotten Realms. Stoutheart, also known as just Stout, halflings are one of the most common types of halflings along with the Lightfoot. Stout halflings may have some dwarf blood in their ancestry. Halflings hail from the Lord of the Rings style hobbits, and though they are small like gnomes, a good rule of thumb to distinguish between the two is that halflings tend to be lawful and traditional, while gnomes are inventive and playful. A stout halfling is not necessarily a traditional fit for a bard, typically a showboat of a class, but their resistance to poison comes in handy if a crowd really dislikes their performance. Quicklings are fey creatures resembling tiny elves who move at lightning-fast speeds. They were originally a lazy race who offended the gloaming court's Queen of Air and Darkness with their constant tardiness, causing her to curse them into their present forms. In exchange for their speed, they live short lives of no more than 15 years. They enjoy playing malicious pranks on slower creatures, though they usually stop short of direct violence. Due to their speed, attacks against them are disadvantaged, and effects requiring a dexterity save do reduced damage. Quicklings have a challenge rating of 1 and are in Volo's Guide to Monsters. They appear in the Lost Laboratory of Quailish. Svirfneblins, also known as deep gnomes, live underground. Due to the harsher environment of their homes, they are more wary and focused on survival, but are nevertheless kind and good like other gnomes, though you may also find many of neutral alignment. They gain a bonus to dexterity instead of constitution like rock gnomes, and can camouflage against stone. Svirfneblins were made a playable race in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide, but had a monster stat block in the basic rules with a challenge rating of 1/2, wielding war picks and poison darts. They appear in Princes of the Apocalypse and Out of the Abyss. This set predates kobolds as a playable race, which was introduced in 2016's Volo's Guide to Monsters, but we do have the benefit of hindsight. Of course, it could be used to represent a monster kobold as well, the base type having a challenge rating of 1/8 in the basic rules, though the kobold dragon shield in Volo's is the type that wields a spear, with a challenge rating of 1. As a playable race, kobolds are at a disadvantage with a +2 to dexterity, but a -2 to strength. But the fighter class does offer options for builds with dexterity as your primary stat. Kobolds appear in many adventures and are often found serving dragons. Like kobolds, goblins became a playable race in Volo's Guide to Monsters, and have a +2 to dexterity and a +1 to constitution, making them well suited to a fighter class build that uses dexterity as a primary stat. Otherwise, the goblins in the basic rules wields a scimitar and has a challenge rating of 1/4. The monster manual also has a scimitar-wielding goblin boss, which has a challenge rating of 1. Goblins appear in almost every adventure. Manes are the lowest form of demon, possessing little intelligence and attacking mindlessly with claws. They are the souls of evil creatures, and killing their physical form causes them to turn to vapor and reform after a day. They may be summoned by a summon lesser demon spell. Orcus may transform them into undead, such as ghouls or shadows. Demon lords like to eat them, which destroys them permanently. They have a challenge rating of 1/8 and are found in the Monster Manual. Manes appear in Tales from the Yawning Portal and encounter tables in Out of the Abyss and Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Paladins are adventurers sworn to fight evil, mixing martial prowess with divine spells. Due to their versatile attribute scores or bonus feat, humans are decent choices for any class. Paladins swear to serve a deity, taking oaths to follow certain ideals, though some may stray from their path or turn evil, breaking their oaths altogether. This figure does not appear to have any holy symbol on it, so it could represent any type of paladin as well as a fighter. Sun Elves fall under the High Elf subrace presented in the basic rules, and are elaborated upon in the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. Sun Elves incorporate magic as part of their everyday life, and view themselves as the pinnacle of intelligent races, blessed by the elven god Corellin, and superior even to other elves. We are not super familiar with the Tyranny of Dragons plotline, but Sun Elves do not seem to feature prominently in it, though parts of the adventure span areas where Sun Elves would be found. Like Sun Elves, Orcs do not seem to feature prominently in the Tyranny of Dragons plotline, consisting of Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat. They do appear in plenty of other adventures, however, and since this was the first Icons of the Realm set for D&D 5th edition, it's possible it carried the burden of introducing a lot of core creature figures. This is certainly a nice and sturdy Orc figure and can also be used as a player character mini since Orcs became playable in Volo's Guide to Monsters. A generic Orc from the basic rules has a challenge rating of 1/2. The Zhentarim are one of the major factions in the Forgotten Realms. Their members are mostly mercenaries, but they also use their financial power to exert influence with the goal of dominating Faerun. It is not their standard MO to turn to banditry. The members may engage in skullduggery to accomplish their ends, or be hired for the right price to rob others. The winged snake symbol of the Zhentarim is not apparent on this figure, making it usable as any bandit or even a playable character or NPC. A generic bandit has a challenge rating of 1/8 and is found in the basic rules. Continuing the theme of filling out core creatures that appear in many adventures, hobgoblins are goblinoids like bugbears and goblins. They are much more disciplined, however, with a martial society where every member is focused on preparing for war. Hobgoblins appear as monsters in the basic rules with a challenge rating of 1/2. They wield a long sword and long bow and deal extra damage in battle when beside an ally due to their discipline and training. They became a playable race in Volo's Guide to Monsters. The Barbarian class is not the same as a barbarian background, which is what members of various wilderness tribes may also be called. However, there is some overlap as those who take the Barbarian class value their primal roots over the trappings of civilization. They are able to enter a berserker rage that makes them stronger if they aren't wearing heavy armor. This human female barbarian figure would make a good player character or NPC. Orogs are orcs born with exceptional intelligence. They often become leaders of orc warbands due to their tactical prowess, but are not welcome among tribes because their regular orc war chiefs see them as rivals. They may also join together to form Orog mercenary bands if they encounter too much distrust from regular orcs. In combat, they may attack twice with a great axe or use a javelin as both a melee or ranged weapon. They have a challenge rating of 2 and are found in the Monster Manual. They appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Princess of the Apocalypse, Storm King's Thunder, Out of the Abyss, Tales from the Yawning Portal, and Dragon Heist. This mini cuts an imposing figure and is possibly closer to a large-sized mini in height than a medium. Doppelgangers are shape changers who can polymorph at will into small or medium humanoids. They can also read the superficial thoughts of creatures nearby and gain attack and damage bonuses if they make a surprise attack. They have a challenge rating of 3 and are in the basic rules. They appear in the Lost Mines of Phandelver, Princess of the Apocalypse, Out of the Abyss, Storm King's Thunder, Tomb of Annihilation, Dragon Heist, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and Acquisitions Incorporated. Wood elves live in forests and tend to distrust other races. They are close to nature and able to hide amidst light rain or snow or foliage where others cannot. They also have a bonus to wisdom, which is a primary attribute score for druids, making them a natural fit stat-wise as well as lore-wise. Druids value nature above all else, so what better fit than elves who immerse themselves in the ecosystem of their homes? Green hags are typically found in wooded or marshy areas. They enjoy manipulation and observing the failings of others. They can mimic sounds and voices as well as use illusions to change their superficial appearance. Like all hags, they can join with 2 other hags to form a coven, giving them greater power and access to more spells. A regular green hag has a challenge rating of 3, which increases to 5 if the hag is part of a coven. Their stats are in the basic rules. Green hags appear in Out of the Abyss, Tales from the Yawning Portal, Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and Tomb of Annihilation. I am Groot. No, wait, this is just a needle blight. Like treants, blights are awakened plants, but their awakening is brought about by great darkness that infuses the land. The first blights are said to have come from the blood of a slain vampire. Needle blights are covered in coniferous leaves and can launch them up to 60 feet at targets. They can also attack with sharp wooden claws. Needle blights have a challenge rating of 1/4 and are found in the monster manual. They appear in Dragon of Icespire Peak, Curse of Strahd, and Ghost of Saltmarsh. Red wizards are from Thay, a land ruled by a lich, where the living have begun rebelling against the undead. They travel surreptitiously when in the Sword Coast because of Thay's evil reputation. Red wizards that adventurers encounter outside of Thay are typically seeking power to reclaim Thay and grow its influence. Multiple named NPCs in Rise of Tiamat are red wizards, and this figure could be used for any of them. Unless otherwise specified, red wizards use the stat block of a mage, found in the basic rules, with a challenge rating of 6. Red wizards appear in Horde of the Dragon Queen, Rise of Tiamat, Tales from the Yawning Portal, Tomb of Annihilation, and the Lost Mines of Phandelver. The Cult of the Dragon has long existed with the mission to create and worship Dracoliches. During the Rise of Tiamat adventure, they reinterpret their mission to freeing Tiamat, evil queen of the chromatic dragons. There are 4 ranks in the cult, from the challenge rating 1 Dragon Claw to the challenge rating 7 Dragon Soul. None are called Enforcer, and only the Dragon Claw had art in the original Rise of Tiamat, but new concept art included in the Tyranny of Dragons Anniversary Edition shows this mini was based on the 4th rank Dragon Soul art. This figure can nevertheless be used for any of the cult rank and file, who all carry scimitars or short swords with which they can attack twice. Their stat blocks are in the Rise of Tiamat, which is also the adventure in which they feature. Bugbears are another common monster that appears in many adventures and encounter tables, and belong to the same goblinoid family of races as goblins and hobgoblins. They are the strongest of the goblinoids, but are lazy and prefer bullying goblins and other weaker creatures to do their bidding. They are not organized like hobgoblins and tend to be found in small familial tribes that function as gangs. They became a playable race in Volo's Guide to Monsters with a bonus to strength and dexterity, as well as additional reach for melee attacks due to their height. Their basic stat block is in the basic rules and allows them to deal extra damage on surprise attacks. They wield a Morning Star and Javelin and have a challenge rating of 1. Guard Drakes were introduced in the Tyranny of Dragons storyline as a result of a ritual performed by the Cult of the Dragon, with the aid of a chromatic dragon, who had to provide 10 pounds of fresh scales for the ritual. They were later elaborated upon in Volo's Guide to Monsters, given the same stats as their original appearance, except for lightning resistance, but with bonus stats that depend on the color of the chromatic dragon that donated the scales from which it was created. They are obedient and can be trained like a dog, imprinting on the first creature to feed them after they're created. They attack twice, once with a bite and once with their tail. Guard Drakes have a challenge rating of 2 and appear in Horde of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat. Wraiths are black holes of the soul. They are created from the souls that were damned to the lower planes, except those souls were so evil they attracted enough negative energy that the energy consumed the soul, leaving only a void with fragments of memories of its former life. The Wraith sucks life and energy from anything near it, leaving a wasteland in its wake. Their attacks drain life, reducing maximum hit points, and they can raise a creature that died violently within the last minute as a specter under its control. Spectres have minis in the Monster Menagerie 1 set. Wraiths have a challenge rating of 5 and are in the basic rules. They appear in almost every adventure. Bronze dragons are found on the coast and enjoy taking the form of animals to investigate ships or shipwrecks for treasure. They are amphibious and swim well. They also enjoy war and may actively seek out a side that fights for good to join them. Once committed to a cause, a bronze dragon is incredibly loyal. Bronze dragons have lightning and repulsion breath attacks. This mini has a large base, which would make it a young dragon with a challenge rating of 8, but the icon's base sizes for dragons do not exactly correlate. There is actually a smaller bronze dragon sculpt with the same size base in Elemental Evil, so if you have both, you could use the Elemental Evil one as the young dragon and this one as an adult, which has a challenge rating of 15. All dragon stats appear in the basic rules. Bronze dragons appear in Storm King's Thunder, Sleeping Dragon's Wake, Dragon Heist, and the Shipwreck Encounter table in Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Though sometimes called Ogre Mages, these giants are distant kin to standard ogres and are more commonly called Onis. They enjoy eating humanoid babies and can disguise themselves to scope out and get close to their desired meals. They also seek magical items and will work for evil wizards and hags to obtain them. They have regeneration and attack with claws or a glaive, which counts as a magical weapon. They are also innate spellcasters who can cast darkness and invisibility at will. They have a challenge rating of 7 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Princes of the Apocalypse, Curse of Strahd, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Tales from the Yawning Portal, Storm King's Thunder, and Ghosts of Saltmarsh. Stone giants are reclusive, contemplative artists. They value the ability to carve ornate works of art above all other feats. These quiet, true neutral giants are generally happy to be left alone in their caves to concentrate on their stone carvings, their skill at which outstrips even the greatest dwarf artisans. Now, giants, including stone giants, are considered huge creatures by 5th edition rules. Huge means that the base is 3 by 3 inches. This mini is considered large as it has a 2 inch by 2 inch base. Also, there isn't a stone giant elder stat block that I can find, but a regular stone giant has a challenge rating of 7 and is found in the basic rules. Stone giants appear in Storm King's Thunder, Out of the Abyss, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and Horde of the Dragon Queen. Almost the opposite of the stone giants in terms of disposition, the frost giants value brute strength and pass their time raiding and pillaging, rather than crafting intricate sculptures or painting murals. They live in the frozen tundras of the north, and often live amongst the glaciers, striking out at coastal settlements from their longships to collect foodstuffs and supplies. They aren't much for crafting, instead reusing what they pillaged to suit their needs. Frost giants are also supposed to be huge creatures. You can also use the smaller variants as younger giants, or perhaps just ones who are shorter than average. Also note that Pathfinder has similar giant clans, but giants in Pathfinder are considered large creatures, so these minis can be used for Pathfinder games without issue. Frost giants have a challenge rating of 8, and their stat block is in the basic rules. They appear in Storm King's Thunder, Tales from the Yawning Portal, Rise of Tiamat, and Tomb of Annihilation. Pegasi are good-aligned celestials who hail from the Olympian glades of Arborea, where they serve as the faithful steeds of the Zhentarim, the pantheon of elven gods. They're mostly found in the upper planes, but will occasionally be sent to the material world to aid in a dire situation. They are considered one of the most prized flying mounts, as they are less temperamental than griffins or similar. However, they are just as intelligent as humanoids, so they cannot be broken like your common horse. A bond must be forged between the Pegasus and its potential rider, but if that relationship is established, it is nigh unbreakable. Pegasi have a CR of 2 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Ravnica and in random encounter tables in Xanathar's Guide. Wyverns are another option if you're looking for a flying mount, but they're more likely to try to eat you than let you go for a ride. Wyverns are cousins to the great dragons, and sometimes it's difficult to distinguish the two when you see one flying high above the treetops. Wyverns are known for their extremely potent venom, which they inject through barbs in their tails. Many hunters and adventurers track wyverns to attempt to extract their poison for their own uses. And yes, wyverns can be trained to serve as mounts, but it's generally only successful if the wyvern is raised and trained from birth. Wyverns have a CR of 6 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in many adventures, including Horde of the Dragon Queen, Storm King's Thunder, Princes of the Apocalypse, and Dungeon of the Mad Mage. When a true dragon is born in the Shadowfell, or spends too much time there, they can become corrupted by its darkness and desolation. Over a period of years, the dragon is transformed into a spectral shadow of its former self. The process is discussed in the Monster Manual, and an example young red shadow dragon is presented. They also provide a template to adapt any dragon to its shadow form. Another shadow dragon appeared in the Rage of Demons set. They were both large minis, which would technically make them young shadow dragons. Shadow dragons gain resistance to most damage types as long as they're in darkness or shadow. One appears in Dungeon of the Mad Mage. Green dragons typically live in the forest and rely on trickery and subterfuge to get what they want. Like certain devils, they find perverse pleasure in turning good-hearted creatures to evil. They have the usual dragon drive to accumulate power and possessions, but, like the bad kitten class, green dragons will put forth the least amount of effort possible to attain these goals. They lie, manipulate, intimidate, and threaten to get what they want. Their most prized possessions are those good people they corrupted and brought into their charge. Again, as a large mini, this would classify as a young green dragon, which has a CR of 8. Their stat block can be found in the basic rules. Copper dragons are almost the mirror image of the green dragons. They're good-hearted, but love trickery, pranks, jokes, and riddles. As a reminder, the chromatic dragons are generally evil, while the metallic dragons are generally good, though pretty much all the dragons would fit right in an episode of Hoarders, as they love to accumulate those items they covet. For a copper dragon, that would be treasures from the ground like precious stones and metals. They do love stories and jokes and will become offended if someone doesn't appreciate their sense of humor. You'll often find a copper dragon who became fast friends with a traveling bard, who can regale it with stories and good humor. Young copper dragons have a CR of 7 and are found in the basic rules. Not to be confused with dragonborn, a half-dragon is literally that. They're usually the offspring of a polymorph dragon and another creature, but they can also be created as a result of powerful spellcasting or by taking part in a ritual bath in dragon's blood. The Dragonborn are a distinct race that descended from dragons long ago. There's a template in the monster manual for how to create half-dragons from most any type of creature. A half-black dragon would gain true sight, resistance to acid, the ability to speak draconic, and acid breath on top of its original abilities. One quick way to differentiate between a half-dragon and a dragonborn: half-dragons have tails and dragonborn do not. These large crossbow-type weapons are considered siege weaponry. The stat block for a ballista can be found in Chapter 8 of the Dungeon Master's Guide under Siege Equipment. It takes 3 actions to fire a bolt from a ballista, 1 to arm it, 1 to aim it, and 1 to fire. They can be found on city or castle walls, on ships, or even on shores to prevent an invasion from sea. There's also a stat block for an animated ballista in Dungeon of the Mad Mage if you want to forego the middleman. Ballistas show up in many adventures. Here is one of our early Mind Flayer minis from the Icons of the Realms line. Mind Flayers, also called Illithids, are bad news all across the universe. Hyper-intelligent, malevolent slavers, they once had a vast empire that spread across many worlds, including Toriel. Now they make their home in the Underdark, and venture out from there to engage in their nefarious plots. Most Mind Flayers live in colonies overseen by an Elder Brain. The Mind Flayers possess psionic abilities, allowing them to control the minds of weaker creatures. When physical work or combat needs to be done, the Mind Flayer would prefer to send one of its thralls to take care of it. A Mind Flayer has a CR of 7, and the stat block can be found in the Monster Manual. They appear in fewer official adventures than you might think, but one does appear in Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and of course, one features prominently in my adventure, I Am Your World. It should be noted that half-dragons have not officially been made into a playable race at the time of this recording. Of course, you can use minis like this to represent a dragonborn character if you choose to, though technically a dragonborn wouldn't have a tail. There is a stat block for a half-red dragon veteran in the basic rules, and a half-red dragon gladiator in Rise of Tiamat. Half-dragons take on many of the personality traits of the draconic bloodlines, so a half-red dragon would likely be predisposed to being covetous and haughty. This mini closely resembles the half-dragon art in the basic rules. Most of the Aarakocra on the material plane are far from home. They may be refugees, explorers, missionaries, or scouts, but you will rarely encounter more than a few in any one place, except for the 4 colonies they've established across Faerun. Their home is on the elemental plane of air. Aarakocra were made a playable race in the Elemental Evil Player's Companion. They make popular player characters because who wouldn't want a flying speed of 50 feet at first level? If you're looking to find a good synergy between racial stats and class, Aarakocra make natural monks and great rogues. As an NPC, they have a stat block in the Monster Manual and a CR of 1/4. When the angels need to send messages or complete tasks outside of the upper planes, Devas are the perfect agents, as they are able to change their form to better blend in with whichever realm they need to visit. There are 3 orders of Deva: the Movanic, Astral, and Monadic. Movanic Devas were the weakest and most numerous of the Devas. They're also known as being privileged and worldly, being the order most often sent out of the upper planes. Devas have a challenge rating of 10. Devas appear in Curse of Strahd, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, and Ravnica. Harpies are just the worst in every game I've ever played. In Dungeons & Dragons, they are sadistic sirens who lure victims in with beautiful songs, only to murder and eat them. See The Worst. They sometimes also use their songs to lure victims into physical traps or over cliffs. They're as cowardly as they are evil, so they'll do anything to avoid a fair fight. They enjoy collecting shiny trinkets from their victims, and if they don't find any attractive baubles, they'll just take your bones. Harpies have a challenge rating of 1, and their stat block can be found in the basic rules. Harpies appear in Saltmarsh, Princess of the Apocalypse, Dragon of Icespire Peak, and Storm King's Thunder. Gargoyles are actually earth elementals. Their appearance once inspired artists and architects to add statues of gargoyles to their building designs. Seemingly lacking in foresight, it's now almost impossible to tell which gargoyles are simply grotesque eyesores on otherwise perfectly nice buildings, and which are likely to jump off and claw your face off. Like the harpies, gargoyles are sadistic little things that like to torture and torment weaker beings. They also take pleasure in serving strong masters, and will happily guard their master's home, especially if it means they get to torture the occasional interloper. Gargoyles have a CR of 2 and are found in the basic rules. They appear in Princess of the Apocalypse, Tomb of Annihilation, Dungeon of the Mad Mage, Curse of Strahd, and can be summoned by other monsters in the Conjure Elemental spell. The final 4 figures are all large-sized dragons, which would, again, make them adolescents by the rules set forth in 5th edition. Each dragon is known for a primary personality trait, a favorite terrain for their lairs, a favorite item for collecting, and an attack type. Blue Dragon's primary personality trait is vanity. They respond to insults with deadly force and enjoy ruling over lesser beings. They attack with care and thought rather than flying into a rage. They attack with lightning breath and live in barren or arid places, often burrowing to create crystallized caverns under the sand for their lairs. A young blue dragon has a CR of 9, and a stat block is found in the basic rules. It appears in random desert encounter tables in Xanathar's Guide. Metallic dragons like this are good aligned. The silver dragon's primary personality trait is being moral and ensuring that their actions do not harm the innocent. They are not champions of good who root out evil in every dark place, but they do not shy away from action when they see evil being perpetrated on the innocent. They also enjoy spending time in humanoid form and will establish strong relationships with humanoids. They like to collect relics from humanoid history and live on mountaintops where they can be amongst the clouds. They have 2 breath attacks, one that causes cold damage and one that paralyzes. A young silver dragon has a CR of 9 and is found in the basic rules. They're found in random mountain and urban encounter tables. Gold dragons are the grandest and most powerful of the metallic dragons, and are, in fact, champions for good. They are known for being wise and fair, but are often considered aloof. They tend to keep to themselves more than the other metallic dragons, but will occasionally shapeshift into a simple wanderer to visit the local town to catch up on the local happenings. They collect and consume pearls and gems, and will gladly accept gifts of this nature as long as the giver is not considering it a bribe. They live in hard-to-reach places, generally fairly far from civilization, like secluded islands, idyllic lakes, or ancient ruins. They have fire and weakening breath. Young gold dragons have a CR of 10 and are also found in the basic rules. They're found in random forest and grasslands encounter tables. Red dragons are known for being covetous, always wanting more and more treasure to add to their hoard. They value wealth over all other things and will collect anything that has a monetary value, though they also like to take prizes from powerful foes once they've killed them in battle. They're also territorial and easy to anger. Unlike blue dragons, red dragons will act on impulse when angered. They tend to live in mountainous or hilly terrain where they can maintain their mighty perch and look out over their domain. This can bring them into conflict with copper and silver dragons who also prefer mountain layers. They attack with fire breath and have a CR of 10, and they're also found in the basic rules. They appear in Rise of Tiamat. Being the first set in the Icons of the Realms line, released back in 2014, you can see the progress that has been made in the quality of the sculpts and the paint jobs over the years. But this set still contains quite a few figures that are highly sought after and useful in your adventures. It's a great source for large-sized dragons, obviously. In 5th edition, dragon sizes go like this. Wormlings are mediums, young dragons are large, adult dragons are huge, and ancient dragons are gargantuan. So the ones in this set are technically young dragons. Another thing to note, this set came out about the same time as D&D Attack Wing, which repurposed many of these minis. They're identical with the exception of the style of their bases. So if you're trying to track down some individual minis from this set, be sure to look at Attack Wing as well. For example, you can buy the D&D Attack Wing starter set for about $40, which includes the copper, red, and blue dragons. And that starter set and the expansion packs go on sale pretty regularly. This set also includes 8 invisible minis, which are cast in clear plastic. 2 of them are variants of the ones included in this set, the Gnome female wizard and the Halfling female bard. The rest are, interestingly, invisible versions of the minis included in the original Icons of the Realm starter set, which released around the same time. The original starter set included a mini of Drizzt Do'Urden. When the starter set was revamped a bit 2 years later, they replaced the Drizzt mini with a generic Wood Elf Druid. So Tyranny of Dragons includes the original Drizzt mini and not the Wood Elf Invisible. Finally, the Tyranny of Dragons minis are mostly in stock at game stores and distributors at the time of this recording to coincide with the 5th anniversary of the Tyranny of Dragons adventure and the release of the new Tyranny of Dragons adventure book, which combines Hoard of the Dragon Queen and Rise of Tiamat into one giant tome. The new book incorporates the errata that was developed over the years, tweaks the first chapter to better ease players into the adventure, and features a new chapter of concept art, which many of the minis in this video were based off of. Finally, and I'm never going to let this pass, this set features those little clear pegs and posts that I really hate dealing with. I have to just permanently attach the posts to the minis and the bases with super glue to make some of these minis work. They can sometimes be a real pain to put together, and because they're so small and clear, they can be hard to find in my storage box when they haven't been glued to the minis yet, so they're really easy to lose. And I'm so happy that WizKids has moved away from using these. I believe Monster Menagerie 2 in 2017 was the last appearance of these posts. Overall, this set has a few issues, which isn't surprising given its age, but it's certainly a good source of young dragon minis, and it shares some similarities to the Legendary Adventure set of Pathfinder minis, which you can see by clicking in the eye in the corner of the screen, because both sets are designed to serve as a starting place for new collectors. Tyranny features a lot of basic creatures like orcs and elves, goblins, hobgoblins, kobolds, bandits, and basic player characters. So let me know what you think of this classic set in the comment section down below. Would like to thank our sponsor for this video, the Deck of Many. Their new campaign setting book, Humblewood, is releasing very soon now. In the world of Everden, nestled between the mighty Crest Mountain Range and the vast marshes of the Mock Fields, lies a mystical forest known as Humblewood that hums with the great rhythm of nature. It has been ruled for generations by the birdfolk who inhabit the great tree city Alderheart. You can play as one of 5 new birdfolk races based on owls, crows, fowl, hawks, and pigeons. The humble folk live in small villages throughout the wood. You can also play as one of the humble folk races, which are based on deer, hedgehogs, mice, raccoons, and foxes. Humblewood features a campaign for levels 1 through 5 and all sorts of new creatures, subclasses, and magical items, complete with gorgeous art to take your players through a charming, compelling, and exciting adventure unlike anything they've experienced in D&D before. Learn more about it at humblewood.net. Thanks for watching today. If you found the video helpful, please click the little thumbs up button down below. You can see our other full set reviews of D&D and Pathfinder pre-painted minis by using the playlist on our YouTube homepage. If you have any other products you'd like to see us review, please let us know in the comment section down below. Subscribe to the channel and click the little bell icon to be notified when we post new videos. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you next time at the Gallant Goblin.